Hello, and thank you for watching the Young Gemini, and I am naturally glowing. This isn't the sun, this is my actual inner essence coming out only on the one side. If I had it on both sides, it would just completely burn out my computer. And yeah, I can't afford that. Anyway, so um, this is sort of oddly poignant with a lot of things that are just kind of going on mostly at work, to be honest. But I see this a lot in the sort of relaxation, sort of Tai Chi side on things as well. Is there seems to be God, the sun is just the worst. I know we need it for like everything ever, but Godfrey Daniels. Ugh. All right, sorry, or sorry, as our Canadian brethren would say. Hello, Canada, love you. Um, there's this idea of uh, so for I've seen this when talking about relaxation, when we're being able to use progressive relaxation for meditation, just relaxation, being able to use it for coping skills on a day-to-day basis, let alone, yeah, like the Tai Chi and everything like that too. And there's a couple things, it's kind of a couple things I'll go, but I'm going to put them together because I kind of think they go along the same lines. And is the idea that for progressive relaxation, so starting, at the top of your head or at the bottom of your feet and working down or up. I usually go down, work from the top down, so that way you can kind of root like your mind and your energy down low to keep it from rising too much up, even if you're relaxing it. But the idea that during that progressive relaxation practice, you tense everything first and then relax it. And then you tense another part and relax. And tense another part and relax. I think that's rubbish. I do. And I'm going to preface this by saying, excuse me, that to a certain extent it is important to kind of tense and relax just to be able to get a feeling of where things are and yeah, what it might feel like when it's tense. In fact, one of the things that I know my teacher did and with us and I've done on my own training by myself, as well as I don't know why I start wearing my glasses when I do these. The reflection off the screen just bugs the heck out of me. Anyway, but I've done it with some of my other students as well. We'll play, say, the long form of yang style with dynamic tension. So up and everything for like one thing, but the next thing we do is like super, bleh, super wiggly, noodly sort of thing. Now, the sort of real Tai Chi should be kind of in the middle. So anytime, and this is, a sidebar sort of pro tip here. If anytime you're seeing someone playing internal martial arts like Tai Chi and they just look, huh, huh, play Tai Chi. It's not Tai Chi. It might be some form of exercise. They might be getting some relaxation out of it, but it's not Tai Chi because there's no intent in it. There's no energy in it. There's, Tai Chi's, or any of them, Bagua, Xingyi too, as well. Not Xingyi 2 as in the sequel of Xingyi, but Xingyi 2 TOO also. But there's no intent behind it. There needs to be some sort of intent behind it. There needs to be some sort of like animating force in it. There needs to be, you need to see it, make it look like something's going on. Even if you might not be able to check that, okay, well, this looks like, oh, yeah, he looks relaxed and smooth and everything, but he can still looks like he might be able to kind of fight with it a little bit. Maybe not even that, but there still needs to be kind of something in it. In fact, even just Qigong, which doesn't have the martial aspect of it, still you should kind of get the sense when you're looking at that something is kind of going on. So that's, okay, done. But with the progressive relaxation, tensing to relax, you're not relaxing. You're not relaxing. You're going to just a sort of normal state. You're tensing. You're learning to tense. But then when you relax, you're not actually really relaxed. You're just at sort of the normal state that you were before you tensed. So you're not really getting that in that deeper thing and getting it to settle out. You get that negative stuff or that tension or that was it the Bruce Kumar Francis calls it like the four states. There's like strength, which I also kind of take to also mean like stubbornness or sort of like I'm not letting go of something, which might even bring in a little bit of depression side in with that too. So we have strength, compression, so a pressure, tension, or something that just doesn't feel right. These are the four states that BK Francis will talk about that you want to kind of let go when you meditate. But you're not doing that if you tense first and then relax. You're not doing that. You're just going normal. The worst part about that is not necessarily that you're not getting relaxed. The worst part of it is you're training a really crap habit. You're training the idea that in order to relax, you have to be able to be hard and tense first. That I can't relax unless I'm tense. That is a habit you are now forming. Even if you don't have the words for it, even if someone hasn't explained it specifically like that, at least in the subconscious, at least in the other stuff like that, this is what is being trained in the body, in the mind, the subconscious, and everything else. That habit is being reinforced every time you think that in order to relax, I have to tense first. It makes no sense and is completely counterintuitive and illogical to what the stated purpose is. So, and I'll try and do other stuff later. There's this one progressive relaxation that I think was called the red pine meditation. And I'll have other videos eventually talk kind of introing it and then doing kind of a short version and a sort of full version with that. But it's you have that relaxed state and then you relax deeper into it. You know, I'll do that if I'm lying down on my bed. When I do my sensory deprivation tank sort of meditations, you know, I kind of start with that. There's a sort of a heavier meditation than I do with that as well, if I'm doing any lying down meditations. But even as I'm playing, you know, the sort of preparatory stance, if you're talking about Tai Chi Xingyi Bagua, or the attention preparatory stance in any of these, when you start, you want to pop up, you know, quick check through. And then as you're playing, you might even feel tension and then have to relax it. But you know, the more relaxed that you can get, the more you'll start feeling where those places of tension or compression or strength or something wrong is. And not necessarily because you've tensed it first, but because the deeper relaxation you get, the more you're able to be sensitive to those feelings. And then that will then double back in. Now we're starting to talking about emotional content, behavior, and everything, because you can start feeling your triggers first, faster, and more than you could be. You really get almost sort of clues when something might be kind of a little emotionally or anything like that too. So, or as well as I know my teacher has had epilepsy. I have like migraines and panic attacks, and it even helps if I'm having manic episodes or depression episodes. I said migraines, I think, a second ago. I don't remember. It was like 5 seconds ago. I don't remember. But so migraines too. Or even if I'm maybe getting like a cold or something a little sooner, I'm like, oh, something doesn't feel right. I know it's to double my um, vitamin C and double my apple cider vinegar little solution snake juice stuff that I make. I gotta drink that yet today. Anyway, so it starts giving you clues, and the more sort of clues that you can get with those little things kind of popping up, the more you can kind of stave off some of the maybe little negative-y things that might pop out. You can know your triggers, you can know your mind sooner and more thoroughly with that. But it's not going to happen if you train that relaxation means tension first. It's not going to happen is if you tense and then just, oh, you think you're relaxed, but you're just at your sort of normal state. That doesn't happen during that. Along that same vein, And this is probably where most of the vehemence is going to start coming in. And I might actually have another video about other habitual and habit behavior and reinforcement and meaning and everything a little bit later. The shadow's really cool on the straightness of my nose. Sorry, I'm used to it being sort of crooked and everything, and just sort of looks very nice right now. But the other thing that I'm kind of meshing this in together because I think separating them out in different videos or anything is just redundant, is the idea. I gotta try and edit myself because I don't want to. I just gotta edit myself. It's one of those things where the idea that in order to calm down, in order to be more peaceful and relaxed, I'm gonna hit things. Because isn't that a good idea? I'm gonna hit things when I'm upset because I want to relax, because I want to be cool and calm and collected and be able to go on with my day. So I'm gonna beat the shit out of something. Isn't that a good idea? No, it is not. I know people think it is, and I think, and what it seems to be, that the main reason people think it is because if people just start wailing the crap out of something when they're pissed off, then they burn a lot of energy. Being angry just in general burns a shit ton of energy. It really does. I know this from personal experience. And regardless of what some individuals might want to invalidate or dismiss, or pretty much just be emotionally shitty and abusive when someone is trying to tell people about their mental health experience and how their own mental health, their decade of experience at work, their almost 20 years of teaching, and most of that time, or almost 20 years of training, and most of that time teaching internal martial arts might be a relevant perspective on things. See, there it is. This guy's. um, okay, yeah, you burn up a lot of energy. Okay, fine. Yeah. When you're pissed off or something and you're really, especially if there's additional mental health things going on, you want to burn up some energy. Great. You know what you do? You do some effing jumping jacks. You do some push-ups. You maybe take a run or anything else like that. Handstand push-ups against the wall. At that, even if you want to do dynamic tension, which I really, again, I kind of see it the same thing, but it's a little bit healthier in terms of the habit than punching the crap out of things or kicking things, or I heard these anger rooms where people are breaking a bunch of stuff and setting up offices and just breaking anything they possibly can. They've been like $20 to $90 for 5 minutes of breaking shit. It's so good, and everyone wants to throw around catharsis with that. No, you're not fucking getting catharsis. I better make sure I put a little explicit thing on here. Not that I get monetized anyway, but just in case. Um, but no, 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 no. It's just completely batshit crazy to think that when I'm angry and I'm pissed off, my go-to that everyone's cool with is beating the shit out of something, is punching things, is kicking things, is all this other stuff. That's a great idea, is ludicrous. It's completely ignorant and, quite frankly, stupid. Because what you're training then is habits. You're training a habit that angry equals hitting things. So where now you might have someone who just has an anger issue and trouble containing that anger and a temper or something like that, now you're training them to hit things as a way to deal with that anger, which doesn't actually deal with the anger. It perpetuates it. Not only does it perpetuate it in terms of the energy that you're putting into it, okay, you're relieving energy in terms of just getting tired, but that is still continuing that energy of anger and suffering throughout. Neurologically, neurochemically, biologically in the brain, you're perpetuating and now intensifying that emotional content. And everything from actual science to my own personal experience, there's a reason my hands are all jacked up because I was a dumbass, angry little boy at some point in time too. The rage and depression and panic attacks and all this other stuff, I did some things that weren't healthy for me. And one of those things was punching hard things. Guess what? Wall fucking wins. And you know what happened? I didn't feel better. It didn't alleviate any of my emotional content. And it taught me no good skills. It was no good coping skills. And regardless what anyone else, professional or otherwise, wants to invalidate or negate my experience about that, it's pretty fucking valid. Because it's also pretty much what you're going to hear right across the board. From science and theory to anecdotal experience, this is what is actually happening. If you're pissed off, I forgot to thing my phone. I hope I don't get like clipped. That should be under 3 seconds, I hope. But if you're pissed off and you just hit things, guess what? The next time you're pissed off, you're going to want to hit something. And then maybe you get pissed off at someone at a store or a bank and you can't technically hit anything there because it's not what these people at your school or mommy or daddy or anything thinks is a good idea for you to do, and you can't do that, but your coping skill isn't there. I'm sorry, coping skill isn't there because it's not a fucking coping skill. It's a bad habit, and it's a worse habit the more you're allowed to do it and the more it's told to you is acceptable. And the more you're told that this crappy habit is acceptable, the more you're going to do it. And the more you're going to do it, the more it gets ingrained into your habit. The more it starts sticking in the subconscious, and the harder it's going to be to purge that shit habit. So now you're at a bank, you're at a store, you're at a job, something like that. All of a sudden, all you've been trained is that I need to let this out, and you're pissed off, and you can't deal with Timmy over there in the other cubicle, or the guy behind you in line. And what's going to happen is you're going to lash out and you're going to hit something. Or you're going to lash out and you're going to verbally assault somebody or be completely and wholly inappropriate. And guess what? Now your life just got harder because you get fired. You get banned from a store. You get, I don't know, maybe arrested or sued or all of those things all together. All because your habit has been, when I'm angry, I hit stuff. Now, someone's probably going to sit there and say, but John, you're talking about being a martial artist and being a martial arts teacher. Martial arts is about fighting. So aren't you being a hypocrite that you're saying that hitting things to relax isn't good, but you as a martial artist and an internal martial artist are sitting there and that's what it's all about? No, it is not. No, it is not. Because martial arts really, when it comes to it, and we'll call it martial arts, because originally, the original thing, and this even still ties in, it's about preservation. You learn self-defense so you don't have to use it. There's old masters and stuff that I heard that was like, you have good stances, you make your legs good and strong, so you can run the hell out of there if you need to. Yeah, hell yeah. Tai Chi is all yield and redirect. So if someone's going to throw a punch at me, I'm able to move that around, kind of get them off balance or something like that. I'm out. I'm out. Because anything after that, and if they stop and are like, what the hell is that? And I continue, I now become the aggressor. So I'm the one who's now going to get popped. And I mean popped as in arrested. Because I became the aggressor. I perpetuated and excelled the situation. And martial arts is all, we're talking about focus, training determination, humility, self-control, perseverance. All these things are what's going on in martial arts. And don't forget, if we're talking about martial arts, we're usually talking about Asian martial arts. And the sort of cauldron that created Asian martial arts as we know it now was Shaolin Temple, was a Buddhist temple. And regardless of what some people throughout history might have kind of warped or anything that sort of thing with or involve themselves in things that you might not see as as particularly a Buddhist sort of thing to be involved in. It still comes from an esoteric practice. You know, the way I see the formation of it, you've got like Buddhism and Kalaripayat and yoga from India. You have the native Taoist thoughts and spiritual practices, as well as the health and qigong aspects, combined with like Shuaijiao and stuff, and all that came together at Shaolin Temple, which was a temple. And look, Taoist religious, and not even religious, but spiritual. Sorry, Taoist sort of spiritual and qigong practices and meditations and exercises. Um, uh, Spiritual exercises and meditations from India coming together. It's not just about, just sorry, again, God, just about fighting. You can remove it from the 20th, 21st century American context of it. The American context of it with a bunch of Axe body spray, uh, uh, was it affliction wearing, gel haired, monster drink swilling fucking douchebags who just are yelling and screaming and want to see someone get hurt because they're diseased, polluted little monsters. That's not martial arts. There's a distinction with that. I mean, otherwise you're just a fucking bully. You know, so if we're talking about martial arts, we're not talking about just fighting. And even if you are sparring or doing applications or training self-defense, you're doing it in a strict environment, or should be, in a strict environment with controls, with rules, and again, this is a should, and with trained people who are there to make sure that people are doing it in a safe way. It's not some angry asshole 16-year-old who can't control their temper because mommy and daddy decided that being their friend or being neglectful of them and just letting them, play the video game or do this to stay out of my hair was more important than being a fucking parent. Because now that they got knocked up, just because they got knocked up, they're irresponsible, or they think that having a kid is some sort of accoutrement that they need to have in order to be some sort of complete successful person, or to trap somebody or do some other shit like that. No. If you're an actual parent, you take responsibility for the kid. That means their actions and how you're going to train them. You're supposed to make the next generation better than you. And if you don't have that mentality where you are now, like, you have to sort of take what your life is and be like, all right, I can't just do me all the time now. I have this other responsibility that comes. If you're unwilling and or unable to do that, then don't have a kid. And I've told people for the past decade I've been doing the jobs I've been doing that if now I don't have a job because there aren't enough kids that need people like me to do the jobs that I do, you know what? Then that's a good thing. That's a good thing for our society. That's a good thing for our future. That's a good thing in a whole bunch of ways if kids aren't being the ones that I've had to deal with. So now you're going to take a kid who can't make it in a sort of regular school environment. And a lot of the kids that I deal with, if they hadn't been closing residentials in this area like crazy, they'd be in a residential. A lot of them actually should be in a residential. But they're in our day treatment center. So now you're going to take a kid who already has had several strikes that they can't sort of manage themselves in a more traditional school environment. It's not just they didn't just screw up once and then got put in our program. This is a habitual pattern of behavior that created the necessity of them not being able to be in a more socially acceptable and open place. So now you're going to take this kid and you're going to say, hey, you know what? You've got a lot of energy and you're mad at your teacher for telling you no. You're mad at your staff because they're holding you to fair, firm, consistent routines and behaviors. You're mad at people because they're expecting you to be socially acceptable and being able to, I don't know, realize that your perception isn't the only thing that matters in the whole world. That people aren't just going to wipe your ass for you, because you think you're so fucking amazing. So now you're pissed off that you're now you're having to clash with reality and the real world that mommy and daddy aren't preparing you for. So what do? We tell you it's okay to beat the shit out of something. Oh, you know what? Just keep punching the wall. That's fine. Go ahead and break all this stuff. That's fine. Get in staff's face, push on them, threaten them, verbally and physically abuse them. That's okay because you're a precious little snowflake, and everything that you do is just wonderful, and that's okay, and you'll come around eventually. Bullshit. That Dr. Spock guy, like 40 years ago, who started a lot of this stuff, that idea that kids don't need parents, they need friends, and they need people to just, oh, everything's just good and hunky-dory. Even he, after getting rich and famous with that bullshit, went back and said, yeah, you know what? I fucked up. I was wrong. No, kids need rules. Kids need boundaries. Kids need to have fair, firm, consistent rules and boundaries and expectations. And if now they push and push and push and push and push and keep trying to change that, yeah, they're going to escalate. Because if one thing works for them a bunch of times and it's not working for now, they're going to escalate thinking, oh, I'm going to push in more. I'm going to push in more. Kids are little sociopaths. They haven't developed a lot of that empathy and compassion for that. So you're not going to sit here like you would with someone like me or something like that, two adults who are past that sort of 26, 27-year-old kind of brain barrier where things kind of mature a little bit more, you're not going to have the same conversation with that. You're not. And whatever sort of theoretical bullshit you think is data driven or anything like that, number one, anyone with half a brain can semantically manipulate data however they want. All right, Cuyahoga County said they had an 80% reduction in the kids that go into something like come into court or get locked up or something along those lines. And because of things like wraparound and community programs and day treatment centers, and it's bullshit. You know how I know that? Because I worked in a residential, I worked in a wraparound community setting, went back to a residential as a therapist, and now I work at a day treatment center. You know what? It's bullshit. I have 100% uh, um, reduction in traffic in my house. You know, I'm able to keep this infinitely more pristine or something like that. Yeah, you know what? Because no one comes over. I live by myself and no one comes over. And that's what the courts are doing. They're not putting kids in places where they would probably get the most help. And then they're turning around and using those numbers to try and say, oh, what a good job we're doing. What a good job these things are. Because the people with the money are saying that, oh, these things are cheaper. And then the people who are making decisions all have a bunch of theory, want to make their mark on the world, want to be seen as these wonderful people when they're not doing anyone any good favors. I was around, I worked at Palmerdale when tragedy struck and a bunch of changes happened. You know, and people were just waiting for other things to fail. And you know what? The way things have been going for the past 10 years, worse things are on their way. And it will be the fault of the people who are making these decisions. The people like the people who are saying, hey, you know what? It's all right to beat the shit out of something when you're angry because that makes you calmer. It fucking doesn't. It teaches you the habit of anger equals aggression equals physical violence, and it will escalate the longer those lessons, those habits are ingrained in the person. It will make it worse. You are not helping anyone by just letting them walk all over you and increase their habitual violent streaks. You are not. You know, and people want to say that, you know, maybe myself or other people like me are too aggressive when we do restraints or something like that. And and all you're teaching is the same thing. No, it's not. You're teaching them, hey, you know what? There's a line. And when you cross the line, there are things that will happen to you. And it won't be anyone's fault but yours. And people want to say, oh, they're kids and they have these mental health things. I had a cottage manager, one of the guys who trained me originally, a friend of mine told me these kids are professionals. And when I've seen the kids who legitimately do have really, really low functioning and legit like handicaps still manipulate and still work the system. All these other ones that we deal with don't have an excuse. I've seen kids who are really low functioning still manipulate and work the system. So they know what they're doing. And I've seen a lot of these kids that people want to say this, that, and other about, hey, you know what? They're doing this because they made a choice. Now, those choices might legitimately get them to a point where then they can't control it themselves anymore. And that's where a lot of this sort of mental illness or the sort of mental handicap or something might come in. But all up until that point, they had an opportunity to change it, and they made a systemic uh, uh, line of choices to not do what was going to help. They made a line of choices that made their lives harder. And this is what happens when you do that. And if they don't learn those lessons now, it's going to be really shitty when they get out in the real world. And instead of 6 months in juvie, it ends up being 6 to 60 years out in the real world. Some of these kids, this is 13, 14-year-old kids. I'm 6 foot tall. Kids 6'2", 6'3", 13, 14 years old, like 250 pounds. You mean to tell me that in this day and age, and I'm in Cleveland, the cops got no problem shooting a 14-year-old kid 2 seconds out of walking out of the door? A guy I knew uh, who was even played pro football and stuff like that, shot in a bar fight. There's bars a couple blocks away from my house right now that got shut down because of shootings and stuff like that. You mean to tell me that all these people are going to stop and think, oh, wait a minute, this person looks like they might be under 18 and maybe there's a mental health problem going on there, and I should really not shoot them with my concealed carry license, or even if they don't have one. No. We also live in a day and age where people are getting high on drugs and biting people's faces off. Guess what? When these kids really wild out and then they can't control themselves anymore, people are going to think of that. People are going to remember that. And then someone's going to get really hurt or worse. Because these kids have been trained now that when I'm mad and I don't get my way, it's really what it is. There's a lot of power struggles, or trying to be power struggles. A lot of I want my way right away. People want Burger King, my way right away. And no, it doesn't work like that. You have to learn how to be socially acceptable. And being violent, being verbally and physically abusive is not socially acceptable. And let's call a spade a spade. If a kid's up in my face and trying to push past me and stuff like that, that's abusive. They're pushing me. They're throwing chairs at me, spitting on me, biting on me, something like that, trying to hit me. That's abuse. And then these kids are just going to learn that, hey, you know what? I can continue to be abusive, and that's okay. I can just say and do whatever the fuck I want, and these people who are supposed to be teaching me better routines and better practices and everything like that, they're letting me do it. They're not calling me out on anything, so obviously it's okay. Or some of them are, but some of them aren't. But you know what? I'm going to go with the ones that aren't. Because they're going to rescue me, and I'm going to get to do what I want. I'm not going to have any consequences for it. Especially when the ones who are basically neutering the people I don't like outrank the people I don't like. So you know what? I get away with it. So now you're just perpetuating, you know, uh, either verbal and physical abuse or emotional abuse. Because all these kids have probably been emotionally abused and neglected, and all they're going to do is learn how to do that more and better. So now you've helped perpetuate generations of suffering because you couldn't stop and think for 5 minutes that maybe, just maybe, what I'm doing is helping perpetuate some shitty habits and some shitty behavior. Yeah, I told you that was going to kind of get a little with things. So yeah, that's. I'm gonna calm down now. I need to eat some chocolate or drink some chamomile or something. But yeah, I'm watching the counter just keep going, and I'm just babbling at this point. But I just don't understand. I just don't understand because you need to have theory and application. And a lot of the theory that people are going with nowadays is flawed because I mean some of the theories going in with if they're going in with kids with mental health issues or mental handicaps or behavioral issues, it's not as severe as what we deal with. And a lot of stuff is just getting kind of written off, or it's not even the right population. So people that I'm working with are taking data, which again, look, rewind and see what I think about that, taking data from something that isn't even comparatively appropriate and trying to jam it in to this. People and it's people. A lot of times people will come in, and I saw it at Borders. When I worked at Borders, saw it at Palmerdale, and guess what? Both of those places gone because there were people who were making decisions who didn't know what they were talking about. That if they sort of worked on the front lines, it was so long ago that the culture is completely different now. And most of the time, those people, the only reason they worked in those sort of front lines to begin with anyway, were so they could climb. So they were never actually really there paying attention to what was going on and how things were operating because they were just looking to move up and looking to move up and looking to move up. So they got sycophant behavior in order to just perpetuate their own further thing. And that, I understand that's sort of like the American ideal, but that mercenary mindset thing doesn't help anything. It doesn't perpetuate it might perpetuate that person up to a point because those people aren't really going to go past a certain point because they're too ingenuine. And eventually they're going to hit up against a ceiling with that. Unless, of course, like a lot of places, they know somebody or they're related to somebody or they get in there with somebody and then the nepotism kicks in and then everything just sort of crumbles down from that. So you get people who were sort of hired by some of these other people who think they've got such great ideas how things are going to run. So we'll hire people from either a completely different uh, uh, career path or a completely different um, uh, career. Like, oh, okay, so we're at Borders and we're going to try and make ourselves Target and Best Buy because that's what's made us successful for 20 years. Boop, 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 fail. That's what happened. Oh, well, we're this mental health organization, so we're going to take these people from this other thing that's nothing to do with mental health or education, and they're going to teach us how to run this more efficient. Fail. Because people aren't adapting. And then people want to start putting their footprint on things immediately. They don't know how the things work. They haven't acclimatized themselves, and they just want to jam themselves into that and be the one who's it's all on me now. I did all this and I created this blah 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 blah. But it's just egomania. I mean, to a certain extent, yeah, to a certain extent, we kind of need that sort of Eastern mentality of how does this work for the greater good? We need to get rid of a lot of that individual ego. And I know this is somewhat hypocritical for me to say, considering that I've been trying to work on having a healthy individual ego because most of my life I haven't. And a lot of my sort of Eastern practices and training have been right into this other greater good of not you, you need to eliminate you sort of thing. But, when you're working with an organization, you're working with people, yeah, you've got to have that idea of how does this work in a larger context. And a lot of people don't. They have all theory and no practice, no practical application. They're unwilling, I'm not going to say unable, they're unwilling to be observant, to be mindful, to use deductive reasoning legitimately, without their ego, without their BS involved with it. And it's creating failure left, right, and center. It's why Borders is gone. It's why Parmadale is gone, and that's why I have a big fear for a lot of things that are going on. And it's not just the organization I work for. I mean, I'm in Ohio, and Kasich's just evil when it comes to mental health. Just it's sort of ignorance and neglect and just an absolute unwillingness to understand anything except for just this shitty, hyper conservative idea. Is people just want to take mental health stuff and just, it's not real, it's just stupid, it's just a bunch of crazy people. Just get them out of my face. I don't want to even think about it or look at it. How we're just going to save money. Oh, we're going to save money. Screw the mental health things. Just take the money from them because they don't need it. Whatever. It's people is crazy. Get over it. And you can't do that. So, I mean, this is Ohio. The whole state's fucked when it comes to mental health stuff. And you can definitely thank the Governor Kasich for a good quantity of that and all his little sycophant assholes that he's got working in with that too. And I'm really afraid that that whole just mass coming in from the state, coming in from people egotistically trying to do a bunch of garbage with these different organizations, with all theory, no practice, people who are paying for it, looking at this data-driven garbage that doesn't actually work and isn't actually appropriate for where it is that we're going and what it is that you're trying to put the practices into, and then people getting burned out, people being assaulted, people having their cars destroyed or at least messed up or wrecked in some way, being constantly verbally, emotionally, and physically abused and getting no backup whatsoever from the people above. We're heading for a storm. And shit's only going to get worse if this is the mentality that we keep perpetuating. If we're completely going to still be blind. I mean, I'm sorry, we have 100,000 years at least of anatomically modern human behavior and practice to pull from, and we're not doing it. We're going completely opposite. I'm not saying that, okay, well, 50,000 years ago it was completely fine to just punch the crap out of your kid if they're doing something wrong. I'm not saying that. But there are certain things that have been consistent over time that for the past 40, 50 years, people have been trying to get rid of and saying is garbage, and it's not. So, all that being said, pay attention to what you're doing and how you're doing it. Is what you're doing and how you're doing, how counterintuitive is it to what you want? If you want to be more relaxed, why are you trying to tense yourself? If you want to be more calm and peaceful, why are you doing something violent? And again, proper martial arts and martial artists under the guidance of correct teachers, it's not about violence. If it wasn't for my martial arts practice, I'd probably be in jail or dead now. I'm almost 40, and I started one before I was 20. I was not a happy, balanced individual in any way, shape, or form. A lot of freaking issues going on. And if it wasn't for that practice and having someone who was willing and able to take that time and help guide me through a lot of stuff, regardless of anything else that's happened since, I would not be here because of the effort and work I put in. And it's been a lot of literal blood, sweat, and tears and perseverance and effort. And legitimate, honest effort on that part too. Not just, I got it because I'm fine and I'm good now. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. No, I don't rest on what I've done. I keep trying to keep getting better because I know there's always somewhere more to go and something more to do. And I'm not by any way, shape, or form mastered anything, and I'm in no way, shape, or form I'm not really a model to be held up for a lot of things. But I do have a certain level of experience. And my level of experience in a lot of things can teach and tell that, hey, you know what? If your goal is to be calm and relaxed and peaceful, then why the hell are you doing things to actively be more angry, aggressive, and tense? So my light's fading, and it'd be just, I need to stop anyway because I'm over 40 minutes. So thank you for watching and listening, and if you made it this far, man, kudos and good to you, because that was a lot of spewing at that point in time. And by all means, I recommend having a couple pieces of chocolate and some chamomile tea, because again, that was a lot. And if you didn't make it through and kind of skipped ahead, yeah, honestly, I don't think I can really blame you at this point in time. I don't really have the tech or the budget or the skill to streamline or edit this anymore, just like the rest of any of these. But I am appreciative of even watching some of this. Maybe I should have said that in the beginning. So thank you. Have a fine evening, day, week, month, year, etc. I hope everything is well. I hope everything is calm and relaxed and peaceful and serene. I like serene. Serene's good. So, like, subscribe. Please don't report my text message alert to Fox for any sort of me being sued or anti-monetization-y stuff. Not that I'm getting monetized anyway, but still. And again, like, subscribe. Peace. Wakanda forever. Love you guys.